Hi, good evening. Welcome to the next installment of our Torero Countdown series, a series of webinars that are intended to help make your transition as smooth as possible as you get ready to join our community later on this summer. Tonight's topic is entitled Helping Your Student During the Transition to College. My name is Steve Pultz. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment here at USD, and I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Mostly parents, but we suspect perhaps a few students are joining in as well. I mentioned my role here at USD, but I'm also a parent of two college students, which may come in handy as we make our way through the conversation tonight, as we address some of the concerns, some of the challenges, some of the excitement that goes around this really important part of the college experience, that transition from students being at home and now being independent adults as they make their way to college. It's whether this is your first time sending a student off or whether you've done this before, you know that there's a lot of emotions that are certainly going on around the household, both for you as parents and for your students. It's very exciting, as I mentioned, but there can also be a lot of stresses involved as well. And tonight I'm joined by a couple of colleagues I'll introduce in just a moment who are going to help address some of those challenges, some of those stresses, some of those great opportunities that you have as a family to make this transition a really, really smooth one. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. I'll introduce them. I'm joined tonight first by Renda Quinn, who is the Director of Parent Relations here at the University of San Diego, and Dr. Moises Barón, who is the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs in our wellness, health and wellness area. Both will explain a little bit more about their roles later on. Both have been at USD for some time. Both are parents, and both have helped countless numbers of parents and students through this really important transition period. And so we're delighted to have them both, and we're going to benefit, and you're going to benefit a lot from their collective wisdom. The way we hope this will work tonight is that we've got some material planned. We've got a number of things that we want to cover, some of the more common things that we know parents and students are struggling with. We want to share a lot of information about the resources that USD has for your student and for you as parents. But we're also going to really ask you to participate tonight by asking a lot of questions. You have the opportunity during the program to type in your questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can. Probably won't be able to get to all of them, but we'll highlight the ones that we think might affect the greatest number of students. If you have real particular things that you'd like to know more about and particular questions, you can either contact us after the webinar, or you might want to join us afterwards in our chat room. Toward the end of the live presentation here, which will be about an hour or so, I'll give you some instructions on how to move over to the collegeweeklive.com site and find the USD booth, where you'll be able to have a live chat with representatives of the Office of Parent Relations as well as the Health and Wellness Center. So if you have particular questions, we encourage you to join us afterwards for that part of the program as well. This part of the program will take about an hour, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And Renda, we're going to start with you. Before we get into the first part of the program here, perhaps you could talk just a little bit about what the Office of Parent Relations is and the work that you and your team do.
Great, Steve. Thank you. I would love to do that. So the Office of Parent Relations is here for all of you. We're an office of three. We're all alumni of the university, and we are your liaison to the university. So should you have any questions at all, if you have any concerns, please feel free to give us a call. We answer our phones. We're there during business hours. You can send us an email. We'll respond to that as well. We want to make sure that you get the answers to your questions, and we'll do everything we possibly can to get you to the right people so that all of your questions are answered. We'll communicate with you in a number of ways during your students' time here at USD. One way is through our parent e-newsletter. So please be sure that we have all of your proper emails in our database so that we get the email newsletter to you when we have it ready. We'll send those out the beginning of each month while school is in session. It's a great way to support your student as they go through their time here at USD. Many times we'll hear students say, gosh, we're not quite sure what's going on campus. Well, that email newsletter will inform you of a lot of things going on campus, and we'll send you to different links that could perhaps provide you some great suggestion tips for your students to get involved on campus and to become more a part of the community. So we hope that you'll use that as a resource to support your student. We also, hopefully you've all received the family calendar. It's a great way to follow through the year with your student. It also provides you some great tips to move your student throughout the year, and it also will alert you to various deadlines throughout the year as well that you should be aware of. Another way that we will communicate with you, and it's actually more of an interactive way, is our parent Facebook page. It's actually run by one of our current parents. She has had 3 students go through USD, so she's a wealth of information. You can find that at facebook.com/USD parents. We hope you'll become a fan, and that will be a great way to stay on top of things on a daily basis. And one other way that we will communicate with you is through email news blasts. So should something come up on campus and we feel that is particularly important for you to know, we will send you email news blasts as well to keep you informed of all the latest that's going on, so that you know what's going on here on campus. So I think in a nutshell, that's what our office does.
Great. Thanks so much, Renda. You mentioned the parent calendar that parents should have received, and since May 1st, when the students and parents made the decision to come here to USD, they've been getting a lot of material from us. Most of that has been in the form of electronic email, and most of that has gone to the students. So parents, hopefully you've seen some or most of that, and they've shared that with you. But parents, you've gotten some things delivered to the house as well. And in the midst of all of that, a lot of that information has helped to again, make the transition as smooth as possible, help you be aware of the things you should. But it can be overwhelming when students get all of that information and, of course, the checklist. So can we spend a few minutes and talk a little bit about what parents should be thinking about now and what kinds of things they should be doing between now and move-in day?
Absolutely, so important. So there are a few things that we want to keep you aware of that you should discuss with your student to make sure that these things are taken care of before they get to campus. First off, there's something that many of you may or may not have already heard of. It's called FERPA, which stands for Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. FERPA is a federal law that protects your students' privacy from everyone, including yourselves. So when we say protects your students' privacy, it protects information like their grades, their financial aid information, their bill information. So if that's something that's important to you, we think you should have a conversation with your student to decide how you're going to manage that information. If you'd like to have that information available to you, your student can go on to their student portal at mysandiego.edu, and they can go on and click onto the FERPA tab. That's F-E-R-P-A, FERPA tab. They will list the person's name who they want to release the information to, and then they will check off which information they actually want to release to you. So that's something that's very important that you're going to want to take care of before your student gets to campus. The other important thing with that is if you were to call campus once school starts, we would not be able to speak with you about your student's financial aid or other information without that FERPA release. So very important that we get that from you so that we can have that on file and be able to communicate with you that information. Also know that once your student provides you that authorization, parents, you will receive an email that will give you access to your own portal called My USD Student Portal. So that's something that you will be able to refer to on a regular basis without having to call the campus, and that will provide you all the information that has been released to you. So like I say, very, very important, something that you'll want to take care of before your student gets to USD. Another point is the student health insurance requirement. I know you've all received probably lots of information on this, but we want to make sure that you're very aware of the opt-out date. So as of this year, USD has required all USD students to carry a health insurance policy. So the way that you participate is you can find out all the information about the health insurance policy at sandiego.edu/health insurance. That will answer all of your questions about that health insurance policy. Now, if you're satisfied and your student is satisfied with the health insurance that you currently carry and you know that it works here in California, you can opt to waive out of that health insurance policy. And you need to do so by August 22nd. Otherwise, you will be charged for that insurance policy on your bill. So very important. You want to make sure that you waive out of the insurance plan if your student is going to maintain that health insurance that you currently have. So again, that is for August 22nd. Now, one thing that I did want to touch on, included in your tuition is a health center fee. Now, that is totally different from the health insurance plan, and I want to explain a little bit how that works. So we hope that you will, if your student has a health concern that arises while they're here at campus, we hope that they will start at the Student Health Center to get treated. If they need extra attention, if there's some special need that they have and they need specialty care, then our health center will refer them out to a specialist. That's when the health insurance kicks in. But when they're seen at the health center, their tuition and the fee that they pay with their tuition will cover that part of being seen at the Student Health Center. So hopefully that's clear, and if not, I hope that you will write in with any of your questions on that so that we can make that clear. Again, always start at the health center unless there's a pre-existing condition. Again, start at the health center, let them know, and then they can refer you out to specialists if that is needed. Another point is the consent form for student wellness. This is also very important. Should your student have any kind of health or counseling issues on campus, and it's important for you to be aware of those of that information, it's important that they fill out a release of information form. That's all found on the wellness website. That's sandiego.edu/wellness. Your student will have to fill out a release of information, and that will provide you access to their medical records. So again, another important thing to make note of if that's something that is important to you. Other miscellaneous checklist items would be, we are so excited to have you all here during Ole weekend, which is move-in weekend. And we have a wonderful plan for all of you parents to take part in. It's a great weekend. We have on Saturday evening a family dinner. On Sunday we have sessions where we will provide you with continental breakfast and lunch. For students, all of the meals for the weekend, those are complimentary. For the parents, we need you to register online and pay for the meals. Anyone who's participating above and beyond your student will need to have a ticket to participate in the family dinner on Saturday evening, as well as any of the meals that they want to participate in on Sunday for the parent sessions. So please be aware that you can register for those online at sandiego.edu/parent orientation. That will get you to the link to register for those meals for the weekend. And last but definitely not least, we want to make sure that your student uploads their photo for their student ID card. That's going to be very important. You want a passport style photo of your student uploaded onto their portal so that their student ID card is ready to be picked up when they check in on move-in day. We would like to have those photos in by August 15th. And I think that concludes my checklist.
That's
Good.
great. Great information, Renda. Thank you. And that's really important about taking care of some of those things like your card and so forth. We are expecting about 1,500 new students to join us for the Ole weekend, and so the more we can do ahead of time to avoid long lines will be great. Thanks for that advice. Moises, let's turn to you. I mentioned in the opening that this can really be a really emotional time for both students and certainly parents. And I know you're a parent, have gone through this with your own child, as I have as well. And there's a lot of emotions that perhaps we weren't really ready for or didn't anticipate. What kind of conversations should parents and students be having now to kind of help them prepare for what's to come?
Absolutely. And let me first say that I survived it, and my daughter just graduated, so I'm prove that it can be done. So I really appreciate you bringing this up, and I really appreciate the opportunity to address parents of our incoming students. We recognize that coming to college it's a very unique experience, and for many of our students, it's going to represent new challenges. They're going to be exposed to new stimuli, and there's going to be different demands. Many of them think that they know exactly what to expect, but there are still going to be some surprises. So something that we feel that is important is to try to help normalize the range of issues and the range of emotions that they may experience. There's going to be a lot of excitement, a lot of good things are going to happen. For most of them, it's going to be throughout their experience here very, very positive, but there might be some bumps on the road. So I think it's important for students to understand that that can happen, that that range of possible reactions can take place, and to be aware of the resources that are available to be able to help them. I think the other thing that happens is that students sometimes come with the idea that they are the only ones that maybe have not quite connected or have not made the best friends. And it's important to normalize that this is a very universal experience, that everybody has a different tempo and a different way to really adjust to these changes. So to be able to have those conversations and normalize is important. By definition, going away from home, living in a new environment, and now being dealing with the academic rigors of being at USD is definitely going to create stress. And stress is a good thing because stress promotes growth. However, it's important to keep an eye that sometimes that stress doesn't turn into distress, because that can create some challenges and some difficulties. But again, to normalize the fact that some of these things can happen can be important. It's also probably helpful to talk about expectations, to be able to hear what your students' expectations may be so that you can normalize them, but also to talk about your expectations regarding communication, regarding the kinds of conversations that you feel that will be taking place, and also the expectations that you have about their life here at the university. And to be able to also maybe have a conversation about the level of communication that you feel that you want to have with your student. You know your student better than anyone, so I think it's important to try to individualize this. There are some students that may need a little bit more constant communication just for reassurance. Other students that really would like to just maybe check in with you once a week, if at all. So for you to really identify what may work best for your student and to be clear with them, that will be very, very helpful. And the other thing that I wanted to just mention is, like you indicated, Steve, before, we have been sending a lot of information that hopefully gradually has been coming there so that you can look at it and digest it. We feel that it's important for our students to become familiar with the resources available on campus, to be able to help them understand that there's many, many supports, and the idea is to identify when those may be needed and to be able to access them. So you as a parent, as you become familiar yourself of those resources, can frequently guide students in being able to tap into that, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. So last but not least, I just want to also mention that if your student feels that is experiencing some challenges of difficulties, we feel that it's important to access the support services sooner rather than later. We see a lot of situations where maybe a problem that it's mild or a problem with adjustment can become something more significant by not intervening early on. So we would encourage to talk with your student, to encourage them to just seek help, get some guidance, some advice from the many resources that we have available on campus, so that hopefully a situation that could be easily addressed doesn't become a more significant issue.
Great. Thanks. Talking about communication, students, of course, aren't always as communicative as we might like them to be. I know my two certainly were not. But nevertheless, there is a lot of stress that students feel, whether they or not they express that. And the stressors can be the things you might think about, just the separation and being on your own and fitting in and so forth. But it can also be about perhaps getting a grade that you're not accustomed to getting, or it could be roommate issues or time management issues and things like that. The stressors can come from a lot of different places, and sometimes students aren't even aware of where they're coming from and that sort of thing. What sort of things should students in particular be aware of, and what are maybe some signs that parents can look out for to sort of understand where those stresses are coming from?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing it up, because like I said before, stress is the norm. It's to be expected, and actually it's important that the students should encounter some challenges. That's really going to help them develop and grow and mature during their time here at the university, which is an important element as well. So some of the most common stressors that most of our students are going to experience is related to academics. That's probably identified by our majority of students as one issue of significance. No matter how well they did in high school, and we know they did very well in high school, that's what was required for them to come here, this is a very different environment. So they're going to encounter some challenges in being able to adjust to the rigors of the academics here at the university, and to come to realize that maybe some of the things and some of the strategies that were successful for them in high school may not work as well here. Like studying the day before the exam may not quite do it. So they're going to learn about it. But again, being able to anticipate and be ready for the workload is definitely something that can create some time for some stress. For some of our students also, this may be the first time when they're going to be really having to manage their time. They're going to have, of course, their classes, but then after that, it's really up to them to decide what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So it's very important to have a conversation about them and for them to really manage their time wisely so that there's time to go to class, which is very important, of course, to be able to prepare to study from week to week, but also to be able to participate in the many opportunities that exist at the university for them to get connected. And that will be probably the next thing it will be important to address. We know that at this age, for them to find points of connection and a sense of belonging is extremely important. So we have many, many options here at the university, but to encourage the student to identify something that will allow them to connect, to find like-minded people, to maybe identify clubs, organizations. They're going to be exposed to a lot of that information. That can be very helpful because they can really establish a sense of belonging, which is really, really important. And again, for them to become part of our community. Interestingly enough, one of the most common problems that we see is lack of sleep. It seems like because probably all the stimulation and the opportunities, students forget that sleep is important. So we like to remind them that although they may be at college and they have a lot of energy, sleep is still important. Otherwise, there can be some problems related to health and well-being. And finally, for many of them, this is the first time that they're going to have a roommate. In many cases, these are going to become some of their best friends and great relationships, and for them to really learn to negotiate. But there can be also some stressors, learning to live with someone else. So those are some of the common stressors that they may experience. Now, in terms of what to watch for, again, we want our students to know that this is normal, this is to be experienced, and to know that they're going to be able to deal with it and cope with it. But for some of our students, we understand that some of these challenges can become more significant, or maybe they may experience more distress. So the kinds of things that we may be able to notice is changes in behavior, changes in mood, or maybe on characteristic poor performance. You have a student that tends to do well in class and all of a sudden is not doing so well. Maybe you'll start noticing in their communications that their mood or their affects or some of the things that they're conveying are not what you would expect, or maybe they start attending classes or feeling very homesick, which can happen. So you know your student well. The idea here is, like, if you identify anything that is of concern to you, to be able to openly have a conversation about it and to encourage them to seek some help, some support, because usually it is possible to really turn it around and to be able to point them in the right direction. And trust me, there are going to be some days and weeks when most of them are going to say this is not working, but as an aggregate, they're going to have a wonderful experience and they're going to really grow and learn tremendously.
That's great. Kind of staying with that point a little bit, I guess as those stressors come along and parents and students will be communicating a little bit, the tendency, of course, is for parents to want to help and to immediately jump right in to intervene to make things better. And while sometimes that's certainly necessary and important, that's not always the best strategy. Can you talk a little bit about that from your experience?
Absolutely. And I think that that's a very important point. I think that one of the key issues for us to remember is that the college years are very important, not only because the student is going to be learning and growing and also getting a degree that hopefully is going to help shape their professional life in the future. This is really an important time of development as it relates to other aspects of their personality. This is a time where hopefully they're going to develop more of a sense of autonomy, be able to identify and manage emotions appropriately, learn to deal with frustration and difficulties, meet more and more people that are different from them, and be able to navigate that. They're going to encounter frustrations, and for them to be able to feel that they can take care of them, that they know that mom and dad, family is back there to have their back, but that they are the ones that really start to address some of these issues. So you want to provide the support that will allow them to really have growth in this area as well. If, as a parent, we jump too quickly into solving a problem, we may be depriving our student from the opportunity to really learn from a mistake or having to deal with a situation that is new for them. So the idea is really here balance. perfectly fine to provide guidance, but let them try to solve the issues. Let them try to solve their problems and their difficulties. And you know your student better than anyone, so you may want to also just keep in mind what will be most helpful for them. If, on the other hand, you identify a situation that really requires some attention, encourage them to seek the help. But if you're concerned that they're not responding, it's perfectly fine for you to contact one of the resources at the university to be able to get some guidance as to how to get support, how to get some help. But again, the idea is to really not to do too much, not to do too little, but to really provide them with the environment that would allow them to grow and develop emotionally and to continue to mature. And you will notice over a period of time changes in their development. You will. It's not only, again, that they're going to be getting a great degree that's going to help them into the future, but hopefully they're going to be developing as an individual many characteristics that are really going to shape how they live their lives.
That's great. Great advice. And so, again, I think the takeaway, one of them is that some stress and some uncomfortableness is to be expected. We're going to take a kind of a little pause here, and let's take a second and actually hear from one of our current parents. We put together just a short testimonial, if you will, kind of regarding and addressing this topic. So let's go ahead and show the video.
Hi, I'm Susan Hassett, and I'm from Marblehead, Massachusetts. My husband and I sent both of our sons to the University of San Diego. I have just a little story for you that you might want to keep in your back pocket as you take this journey through the freshman year with your student. So about 7 years ago, we sent our first son to the university. He was thrilled. And I'd been hearing from different people about the whole homesickness process. They're going to be upset, they're going to be missing family, they're going to be wanting home-cooked food. And I, of course, dismissed all of this because I thought, it's not going to happen to my son. He's too excited to go to school there. So about, 4 to 6 weeks into his freshman year, one afternoon I got a phone call. I picked it up, and all I heard, I got no hello. All I got was, Mom, I hate this place. I don't like the food. I'm not making friends. You can imagine the heartbreak as a parent 3,000 miles away receiving a call like this. I was devastated. What have we done? What is the decision we made to send him there? This is terrible. Hung up the phone, had a miserable evening. About 24 hours later, the phone rings again. I pick it up. Hi, what's going on? Where's Dad? What are you doing? And I thought, are you kidding? What is this? Happy as a clam, all was well. So the reason I'm sharing this story with you is that they will be fine. You will be fine. It just might be a little bumpy during the first 6 weeks. So strap yourself in and enjoy the ride.
Great, a great piece there. I think a very candid perspective from a parent. First, I think it very much normalizes things to your point, Moises, that these are very normal things for a student to experience during their first couple of days, weeks, even months at college. Certainly at USD. The other thing that takeaway that I had was that things change so quickly. They can change from day to day, from week to week, and so kind of hanging in there, being there as a support for your student, as Moises has mentioned, is just so important. Not to overreact and let your students sort of work through some of the things. So we certainly thank her for sharing her story. Moises, let's stay with you for a little bit here. And part of your role here at USD is to oversee our students' wellness in a very broad sense. Wellness is something that USD considers very much a core value at the institution. We very much believe in that holistic education for our students, educating them not only academically but in all sorts of ways. And we provide a lot of information, and we have a lot of services. You've alluded to some of them, to help our students make good choices, good lifestyle choices, good choices about their health, about their friends and their activities. Can you talk a little bit about some wellness tips that might help parents, again, maybe initiate those conversations and for students to think about?
Absolutely, be happy to. As you were indicating, really, for most of our students, the kind of range of experiences that they may have are just to be expected, and they're going to be able to manage it and handle it okay. However, it's important to recognize that sometimes students do need help, and we want to be able to be clear about that, that yes, sometimes for some of our students, there might be more distress, there might be issues that they may be dealing with from a health perspective, medical perspective, or emotional or a point of view. So it's important to recognize when the help is needed and also actually not delay in being able to get the help. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that later today. But in terms of some of the things that may be helpful to consider is just the idea of balance. It's important that as they get into this environment, there is a lot of excitement, and I think that probably the number one concern is like, am I going to fit in? Am I going to be liked? Am I going to like those around me? So that, understandably so, with this age group creates a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety. You know that your student sometimes may have a little bit more ease moving into new situations. For some students, it might be a little bit more challenging. So given that we know that that's really something that's going to be deeply in their minds, it might be helpful to have some of those conversations with them if you think that your student may need some assistance or help in that area. When we're talking about balance also, I think that the whole idea of proper nutrition and sleep that we talked about before are very important. It may sound like something that is not that relevant for them, but it can make all the difference between them being able to manage all the rigors of the academic environment that they're going to be experiencing. We talked about time management and being able to address those issues well. Another important area to consider really is that for many of our students, thinking and talking about the issue of alcohol use it's important. We know that for some of our students, this might be an issue of concern. It's no secret that for college students all over the country, that's one of the important wellness concerns to address, and we believe that the most important thing to do is to really have a conversation about it. Your student receive information about logging into a web-based course that's called My Student Body that provides a lot of good information, because we believe that the best way to help them hopefully make good decisions is to get good information. We want to treat them like young adults that with appropriate information can make really good decisions. So that's really an important conversation to have, because we always get concerned about students who may leave campus and there's the whole city around and may really engage in behaviors that potentially can have some consequences for them. So really having a conversation about that may be important, and to really have an open conversation about drinking and alcohol, and what your views about it, what your students' views are about it, and whether or not that's an area that requires more attention. But again, the materials that they're getting will be helpful as a way to start the conversation. In addition to that, rest assured that we're going to be addressing some of these issues here, but we find that that's very helpful when there's an element of consistency that exists between what the student is hearing from parents from home, and also some of the messages that we try to get here. Also, we encourage them that at any sign that they're experiencing any difficulty, whether it's health-related, emotional-related, like I said before, to be able to get some help. We're going to provide them with a lot of information to keep healthy. We want them to really learn it and to utilize it, and again, to find balance in their life. We want them to have a really good time, to grow, to do well academically, and again, when in need, to seek help. And a lot of the prevention things that can be done. So, for example, they get here and only 2 or 3 months later, it's already flu season. So to be able to listen to the information about flu vaccinations that we do here on campus, so we try to provide them with the resources here so that to make it very easy for them to take care of themselves and to be able to really stay healthy so that they can have a very good experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great advice and tips. So take a second. A lot of you have been submitting questions, which is great, and if others of you would like to, this is a great opportunity to do that. One question that came up, and Renda, I'll address this to you first, or just what are some of the more common issues that parents contact your office about? I'm sure you get a full gamut, run the gamut of things, but what are some of the more common ones? That's
right, Steve. We do. We get a wide range of questions, and we welcome your questions. We want you to call us. Anything on your mind, please feel free to give us a call. I would say it does run the gamut. I would say it's questions about adjusting, finding their place, their friends, and activities that so that they start feeling like USD is their community. Parents will call us and talk to us about that. Many times we'll brainstorm with parents to give them some ideas of suggestions they can provide to their students to start helping get connected. And then if it goes beyond that, of course, we refer you out to many of the resources that Moises has mentioned this evening. We get phone calls about roommate situations and housing. We get questions about academics and academic support, and your student may be struggling and how can they get support. Well, we can certainly put you in the right direction so that you get the ample support that you need, or that your student needs, to make sure that your student succeeds here at USD. It also ranges to, should my student have a car on campus? Or how do I get the shuttle arranged for my student to get to the airport? Or just basically navigating USD. So we welcome those questions. Would be happy to answer them for you, and we appreciate those parent calls.
Great, wonderful. And again, I know parents appreciate building that connection and bond and staying connected, and your office does a great job at helping to make that happen. Well, it's just the next question kind of been asked in a couple of different ways, but it has to do in a general sense about, we've alluded to it, and you've talked gave some good examples about the services that students have access to here for a whole range of things. And the question has kind of come, do students in distress have access to a counselor on campus? Are there programs for students who might have learning disabilities or differences, time management skills, and so forth? And the answer is that we have an enormous range of services and many, many layers from the residence hall on up. Could you talk a little bit about some of those?
I'll be happy to, because I think it's important. And again, this is some information that will be very helpful for you to have, because we share it with your student, but we understand that maybe at the time that they're just moving in and just getting adjusted, some of these may not quite register. So this is where you can be very helpful by reminding them of some of the things that are available on campus, some of the resources on campus. So first, let me talk a little bit about the wellness resources that we have on campus. As an area, we really have a number of professional units available to students. And I'm going to start with the Student Health Center. The Student Health Center is basically an outpatient clinic, state-of-the-art. It's a fairly new facility that it's staffed with physicians, nurse practitioners, nurses. They're open during hours of operations, and they have later hours on Wednesdays. So basically, the student can go in for any kind of health concern that you can encounter. And the health center is going to be able to address the situation. In most cases, they can take care of it. We have also some medications that we can dispense right there on the center to make it very easy to the student. And again, these services are already covered. The student doesn't have to pay out of pocket unless there is maybe a lab that needs to be done, or medications, but it's really a very reduced cost. So it's very convenient for students to make use of that facility. And again, in most cases, they're going to be able to take care of most needs. Something that I wanted to mention also is that we also have after-hour supports where if there is an emergency situation or there's a need to contact one of our providers, it is possible to do that. And let me give that information now, because that's a way to access any kind of emergency services on campus, is to Public Safety Dispatch, and that number is 619-260-2222. Again, 619-260-2222. It's easy to remember. If there is an after-hours urgent situation or emergency, we have really established a protocol here where our emergency public safety dispatch would be able to field the question and the concern and really contact the appropriate provider to be able to ensure that the situation can be taken care of. We also have the counseling center, and in the counseling center we have licensed psychologists, we have psychiatrists and staff also, and they really help a very significant number of students address almost any issue that you can imagine. And actually the counseling center is a good place when it's unclear what direction to go, because they can really assess the situation and determine what kind of support the student may need. They can help advocate or connect them with the appropriate services. So the counseling center is available to all students. The information there, the services are confidential. We have a great team. They have walk-in hours to make it very easy to the student. All they need to do is show up, usually between 11 and 3 o'clock. And we also have a psychologist on call basically all the time, after hours, weekends, throughout the year. So students receive this information, and for any kind of emotional or mental health emergency, that resource is available. We also feel that it's very important to provide throughout the year health promotion and prevention information to the students. So we have a Center for Health and Wellness Promotion that helps coordinate these efforts. And throughout the year, your student is going to be receiving a lot of information, opportunities to participate in programming, to be able to learn about how to stay healthy, how to take care of themselves, and how to really manage different demands. And finally, I also wanted to talk about the Disability and Learning Differences Resource Center. For those students that have a disability, could be a learning disability, a medical condition that requires assistance, the center is really there to be able to help assess the situation and identify what are the type of accommodations that the student may need. So the center will really coordinate with the student, let the faculty know in a confidential manner what the accommodations may be, where there's no taking extra time on exams, and they will be able to help facilitate that. And really something that our center does very good here is not only like in other universities, they just facilitate the accommodations. In here to spend time supporting and coaching students because we want them to be successful. And that's really the way we try to provide services. Also, if the student were to have a temporary problem or disability, they break an arm, they cannot write, the center can also help facilitate supports so that they can really navigate their needs and academic needs at a time like that. So all of these resources are available to students, and they're going to be receiving this information. Again, if you go to the website that Renda was talking about before, sandiego.edu/wellness, you'll have access to all that information. I also wanted to mention and remind you that all the services that are provided in the wellness area are confidential, and that requires a different level of release than the FERPA release that Renda was talking about. If your student is 18 or older, they will be the ones to consent to treatment. And if they don't provide a release, we are not going to be able to share information about their treatment or their condition, even if you have a FERPA release. On the other hand, if they released information, we will be happy to talk with you about any concerns that you may have. The other thing to remember is that if your student, when they get to USD, is younger than 18, or maybe they're going to become 18 into the fall semester, it would still be necessary for you to provide the consent. And then the appropriate unit will get in touch with you so that you can authorize the services until they become 18 and they can do it themselves. But again, any questions that you may have about access to services or how to provide support to your student, we'll be happy to respond. And please remind your student that a very significant number of students access these services. It's quite common for us to see many students in our different services, and we're very lucky to have a team of professionals here at USD that are dedicated, that do a great job, and our units are also accredited and have the highest standards of care, and we're very proud of that.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both for the questions. And again, if you have more questions, please go ahead and submit those, and we'll have some time at the end to get to a few others. I see more coming in here. But let's get back to our program. And Renda, I'll come back to you. Let's start to wrap up a little bit with a look ahead. We are only about a month away from move-in. Those of you who may have been to campus recently, parents, students, please be assured that the campus is literally abuzz with getting ready for you. We are really excited about coming here, but it is getting here fast. So can you talk a little bit about what parents can look forward to during OLA weekend and a little bit beyond, because the orientation and involvement for them doesn't end just with the 3 or 4 days.
That's right. Thank you. Well, let me tell you, we are very excited to have you all come to campus, and it's coming up so fast. So a little bit about OLE Weekend, which is Move-In Weekend. OLE stands for Orientation Launch Events. We want to launch your student into a very successful time here at USD. So I want to give you just some practical tips that might help you to ease your time into the move-in and make everything easier. So for those of you who are tuning in from far away, you may want to send some items ahead of time, and we would be more than happy to receive those. Our mail center will be available to receive any packages ahead of time beginning August 25th, so you can sort of plan and time your shipments accordingly. And when you do, you'll want to label your boxes with your student's name, where they're going to be living on campus, and then new incoming student so that we are aware, and then the university's address. That's going to make it so that we can keep everything organized so that when you arrive on that day of move-in, we'll have your boxes ready to be picked up in the mail center on campus. Also, for those of you who will be bringing a car and driving up to campus with all of your items, know that you will have a designated time of arrival based on where you're living on campus. So you'll have a time frame of when we want you to arrive. We can't have you all arrive, all 1,500 of you arrive at the same time. We have to be a little methodical about it. So please pay attention to where you're living on campus and what time you're due to arrive. When you arrive, you'll pull up to the curb. We're going to be welcoming you with this wonderful welcoming committee that we have of students. They will be there to help move all of your items in. So you'll want to make sure that when you unload your car that every item, every individual item that is loose has your name and where you're living on campus so that when those students whisk all that stuff away up to your room, they get to the right place. So that's very important. Next thing, students will go ahead and check in. There's a check-in table right in front of their residence hall. Parents, there's a check-in table for you as well. So we'll want you both to check in. We have packets for both of you to outline the whole weekend and what you have to look forward to so that you can plan the weekend ahead. You'll want to park, and then all of your stuff will then miraculously be in your room. Just be prepared because it is the hottest day of the year, guaranteed. I don't know how that happens every year, but it just does. So make sure that you do have a fan readily available and that you plug that in as soon as possible, as soon as you get into the room, because we don't have air conditioning, but we do have an ocean breeze eventually, not on that day. It's usually very hot. So you'll have the whole day to unpack. Take care of any unfinished business that you have to take care of. You have until about 5 o'clock, so you have plenty of time to get to know your roommate, their families, your hallmates, and go around campus. There are many offices that will be open to take care of business that day. So you'll have until about 5 o'clock, at which time the family dinners begin. So you will be having dinner with all of your residence hall mates and their families that evening around 5 o'clock. There's a designated area for each residence area. So you'll be made well aware of where those are. After the dinners, we have for parents a president's dessert reception where Dr. Mary Lyons, our president of the university, will welcome the parents and families while the students are whisked away to start their orientation program. So parents, we want you to come as you are. It's going to be a long, hot day. We don't want you to feel like you have to get all dressed up. We want you to just come as you are. It's very casual. Enjoy the wonderful dessert and hear what our president, Dr. Mary Lyons, has to say and offer her words of wisdom and advice. You'll also meet our parent board presidents at that reception as well. So we look forward to that. Following that day, Sunday, the 31st of August, again, your students are going to be very busy with orientation activities. So we have organized a wonderful conference-style program for parents with all kinds of parent sessions to become more aware of all the support that we have on campus for your student so that you can support them as well. One of those sessions is a wellness session that Moises Barone will be conducting in addition to an international study abroad session, managing finances, and so much more. So you may want to divide and conquer. You're going to want to definitely strategically plan your day for that Sunday conference session. That will go from about 9 till 3 in the afternoon. And then at which time around 3:30, that's when your students are going to be free and that's when you are going to be free. That's when you'll come together and join us at 4 o'clock for the family mass. And it's lovely. It goes from 4 to 5:30. It's a beautiful ceremony for everyone on campus, Catholic or not. We welcome all of our families to this. It's a special time to wish your student well. It's a very emotional time, as I'm sure you all are well aware. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful ceremony to take in with your students. So we encourage you all to attend. That will be over at 5:30, at which point you will say your farewells and your students will be on their way to more orientation activities, lots of fun, meeting new friends, and a lot of excitement. So that concludes the parent orientation weekend for that weekend. Now, we don't want you to go away for the whole year. We have all kinds of activities that we have planned for you to come back and visit your student. The next event would be Parent Weekend, Homecoming and Family Weekend. That's October 10th through the 12th. We purposely plan that about 6 weeks out from the beginning of campus because we know that that's about the time that homesickness can set in. And it's better for you to come and visit your student than to encourage them to come home. So we hope that you'll come to campus if you are able. It's such a fun weekend, football game, tailgate party, all kinds of fun activities to share with your student and feel the Torero spirit. Following that, we also have in February a grandparents weekend, and this is great. We want you all to come back. We want you to bring your the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, anyone who might be interested in experiencing what USD is all about. Your student wants to show it off. They're having a great time. Have them come, have them enjoy this wonderful weekend. It's in February. We plan it with a basketball game so that we can have that as part of the weekend. We don't have the date because the basketball schedule is not out yet, but please stay tuned. We will definitely be emailing you and providing you information about Grandparents Weekend. So those are some things to look forward to. We also, how are we doing on time, Steve? Shall I continue? Yes?
Sure.
Okay. We also have some ways that parents can get involved with USD. We want parents to have just as rich an experience at USD as your students are soon to have. And you can do that by getting involved. We have a couple of ways you can get involved here on campus. One is through our Parent Ambassador program. Our parent ambassadors get involved on their own terms. They tell us how they want to be involved, whether it is to offer an internship to a student, sit on a career panel here on campus, volunteer at an admissions fair in your hometown. We're always looking for parents to do that. And perhaps help us with some of our events, help us at check-in and that kind of thing. So we want you to feel like you're a part of this community. The Torero family is rich and wonderful and full of spirit, and we want you to feel what that is all about. So we have wonderful opportunities for our parents to get involved. If that is something that you're interested in, we have information on the Parent Relations website where you can sign up, or you can call our office and we will get you signed up and give you even more information. We also have a Parents Association board that consists of about 30 families from around the country, and they represent our largest feeder cities from where we get our students. And this is more of a commitment. It's about 3 meetings a year. You would sit on a strategic committee, and these parents work to enhance the student experience, and they work so hard and have done some amazing things. So again, if that's something that you think you might be interested in, we welcome you. Give us a call. I can talk to you a little more about it. Again, you can call Parent Relations, and I'll give you that phone number at 619-260-4808. We certainly look forward to having you as part of our Torero family and know that it's going to be just as wonderful for the parents as it is for the students. So thank you, Steve.
Great, Brenda, great information. We hope you're all getting as excited as we are for the start of school. We're going to get to some of your questions, but before we do, we have one more short video. It is pretty short, but I think a wonderful message, and we'll go ahead and watch that now.
So my son came home for Christmas after his first semester at USD, and my buddy put his arm around him and said, "So, Owen, tell me, what was your experience like on a scale of 1 to 10, your college experience?" And Owen looked around at everybody in the room and he said, 11. I was happy to hear that.
Great. So as you heard there, a great short but great story. Our goal, as you heard tonight from our panelists, our goal here as a university and all the many offices that are going to be working with you is to help make sure that your experience as not only a parent but your student is at least an 11 as well. And so again, we just wanted to share that. We do have a lot of questions and we do have a little bit of time. So a couple, Moises, and I'll start with you. The first couple. You mentioned a little bit about emergencies and some of the care that we have and how public safety works. Someone wanted to know about how parents are notified in the case of emergencies. Could you talk about that piece of it?
Great question. Actually, we work, one of the things that I really appreciate about USD is how well we work together in the different departments and across divisions. So you can rest assured that if there is an emergency situation, so let's say that something happens that requires for your student to be transported to the hospital, you will receive a notification from our residential life staff at that moment so that you're made aware of the situation and also the steps that we're taking to take care of it. We do this on a regular basis. We understand that we need to evaluate when it is important for you to be informed and when it is important for you to be involved. So you can rest assured that if there is any kind of urgent situation, if there is any kind of emergency situation, we always try to assess and determine the need to contact you, and we would do so. On the other hand, if a student comes to one of the wellness units and is really dealing with some kind of situation, we're going to address with them and talk to them the need to be able to really involve the parents, maybe because they can be of help, maybe because it's important for them to be aware of it. And we encourage the students to really do so. We want to empower them because, again, the services are confidential and they need to be on the driver's seat in terms of making those decisions. But we try to help them understand why it's important to be able to really involve their family in these kinds of situations. But if there is an issue of safety or an emergency situation, you can rest assured that you will be contacted by a university official. And sometimes it may happen very late at night, but we just want to make sure that your student is safe and for you to know the steps that we're taking to ensure that that happens.
Great, and that kind of leads to another question, and I'm not sure maybe both of you would comment, or either one. I'll let you decide. But about that access, we talked a little bit before, and FERPA and how that works, and the consent forms. A couple of questions came up about about how to make sure that the student needs to provide the parent with that access through the portal, and they need to not only provide access to grades, but there's a whole bunch of things they need to do, and then certainly with the consent forms. I know we touched on it earlier, but can one of you address that? It's real important for family.
You want to talk about FERPA, and I'll talk about the consent?
Sure. So on their student portal, that's where they're going to find the FERPA tab, and that's how they will elect to provide you the information. So it's important that the student go on. You can list the name of the person that they want to provide the information to. They'll provide the person's email address, and then what happens is they check off what they want to release, and there will be a whole listing so that they know what they are actually providing as far as information to the person they're authorizing. At that point, they hit submit, and automatically an email is generated to the parent or whoever that person is that's being authorized. And at that point, the parent or that person will then have access to their own portal to go in and view the information that has been released to the person that they're authorizing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just important to remember that for if both parents are going to have full access, the student needs to let both parents do that. One parent can have certain access and another a different set of access depending on what the student does. So that's just a really important thing to do. And then Moises, you want to talk about
I think that the important issue here to consider that as your student becomes 18, now they are the holders of the privilege. And that's why it's important to have these conversations of how you as a family want to really address this. Obviously, you want to empower them, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense and actually is desirable that you have some oversight. So this is a time to really have the conversation and maybe together to go through the process. So what we try to clarify is that FERPA would allow, those FERPA releases will allow you to have access to some basic information like grades, their bill, student accounts, etc. But it does not cover the information in the wellness units, because once the student comes into contact with one of our professionals, that privileged communication really goes beyond the FERPA release. So rest assured that we talk with students about the need to sign those releases if that's important, so that we can be in touch with the families. But if you feel that you would like to really be appraised of any kind of issue or concern for your student regarding health and wellness, have those conversations and they can come to one of the wellness units and they can sign a release to be able to ensure that you have access to the appropriate information related to treatment that they're receiving or health and wellness concerns.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And I know Moises can appreciate this. I know sometimes the argument that we hear on the other end of the phone is, but I'm paying the bill. And while that may be true, it doesn't mean that we can release information. So those accesses are just really, really important. Just a couple more minutes. Renda, one of the questions that we have is about top 5 things that they should remember to bring to campus. I'm sure you get that quite a bit from parents.
I do get that a lot, and we have some great tips for you. I'll give you the top 5 or top 10?
Let's do the top 5.
Top 5?
But, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I already mentioned the fan. That's very important. The other thing that's very important is a power strip. There are not a lot of outlets in the rooms, so be sure you bring a power strip. A desk lamp is another good one. Under bed storage, like the pull-out drawers, you're going to get some risers for your bed, for the student's bed, so pull-out drawers underneath. And then you may want to bring a couple of padlocks, because there's a locking drawer for each student in the desk, and there's a lock on the closet. So if they want to lock any of their belongings up, they're going to need to bring a padlock for each of those. That would be my top 5.
That's great. Good advice. And you can hear the next 5 in the chat room later on if you're interested. And which kind of brings us to sort of toward the conclusion of our time here tonight, at least with regard to the formal panel. But again, we do encourage you to take a few minutes if you still have a lot of questions. Again, a lot of you asked great questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. But you'll go in and leave the website you're on now and go to www.collegeweeklive.com. That's all one word, collegeweeklive.com. And there you'll be able to access the USD booth room. And as I said, Renda has many of her team there. Moises has a lot of the folks from Health and Wellness there to continue the conversation and go from there. Before we wrap up, a few people wanted to just clarify the contact information for both of your offices. So if we could do that real quick, and then we'll say goodnight.
mbaron@sandiego.edu. Email is a real great way to communicate.
Okay, great. And then your office, the office, what?
It will be, it's in Serra 300, and the phone number is 260-4655. Again, 619-260-4655.
Great. Renda?
Okay, our email is parents@sandiego.edu. The phone number is 619-260-4808, and we are located in the Daguerre Alumni Center.
Wonderful. Again, I want to thank both of my panelists, Renda and Moises, for their time and their expertise tonight. Hope you got a lot out of the program. More to come in the chat room, as I said. Please use that contact information, and we really look forward to seeing you in just a short month during Ole weekend. Thanks for being here, and good night.